Hey guys, Princeton 945 back again with a part 3. So basically what happened is I just had to go eat dinner. But this is part 3 of the series. I guess by this point, my top 10, top 20 favorite movies. Now, when we ended, we were in the middle of talking about Endgame. So, moving on to just the third act, honestly, I just gotta go there next, is amazing. It is so good, and the fan service, there's just so much fan service, and I love it to pieces. Like, to literal pieces. And the whole ordeal is just so cool, and just it's just so cool to watch, especially because that portal scene, that is such a good moment, that portal scene. Um, it's like every character, and it's such a payoff to everything, and it's honestly just so well done. Anyway, overall, Avengers Endgame is such a good film. It is super long. It pays off so many things. It has great continuation of the film, amazing character relationships, great individual and group character moments, incredible action, amazing fan service, and just so many good things about Avengers Endgame. At number 2 is The Lord of the Rings Return of the King. Maybe some people wonder where this would turn up in the list. Here it is. When I first saw this film, it blew me away just so much that it just honestly is a wow. And where do I start? So I'm gonna start with the Frodo and Sam and Gollum arc because that is pretty stinking important in the film. So first off, I love the way I hear sometimes that Frodo is kind of like this wuss in the film, and while I kind of agree with that to a little extent near the end of the movie, I have to disagree for the majority of the film because I really think that it's only in further support of the argument of how much Frodo has been just corrupted by the ring by this point. And I think Sam's heroic actions really just show how much of a friend he is, truly. And okay, so sorry for the delay. Just went to watch the latest episode of WandaVision. Very good. No spoilers. Anyway, continuing back where I left off about Return of the King. So, I was talking about Frodo and Sam. Now, Gollum's deceptions, he's not as profound as a character, this is actually a point I forgot to bring up when I was talking about the two towers, but Gollum is easily my favorite character in Lord of the Rings. And I think that like his multiple personalities are so expertly displayed, and in this film you kind of see his plotting to get the ring back, which is really cool to see, even if it's not the same depth of character that we saw in Towers. But still, one of my favorite scenes of all time is the starting scene to this when we see how Gollum originally became corrupted by the ring. And I think that scene is so cool. And I just love his character in this movie. Or it's Gollum's character in the movie. I guess just like keep moving through the characters here. Pippin is really interesting because he really kind of learns to be without Mary. And like those two together was another dynamic I love about the Two Towers. But to see them kind of separated really provides this unique perspective to both of the hobbits in the movie. And I really like the way that they did that. Now, one of my favorites in the Lord of the Rings trilogy is King Theoden, because for one thing of his redemption arc, being covered by Saruman in the Two Towers, but I also love like his dialogue that's like what do we owe Gondor? Like can't do a British accent, but I love that type of just mentality about it, and I really think that that kind of mentality and crafting is perfect for Theoden's character, and I think that Theoden is written so well. Now, moving on to Eowyn, I have traditionally been a staunch hater of Eowyn's character, but upon a recent rewatching of the trilogy, I have changed my opinions. I don't mind the character, and what I truly think is the worst thing about the entire trilogy, and this is the thing I don't like about Eowyn's character, is the fact that she has romantic dialogue with Aragorn. To me, I think that this subplot makes absolutely no sense, and honestly just takes up time in the movie, because in the books, she just ends up marrying Faramir anyway. So, like, and that brings me to my next point. Faramir is an excellent character in this movie. Like, in the Two Towers, he's really a bit of a douchebag, because despite the whole being corrupted by the ring thing, like, it was different in Fellowship of the Ring with Boromir, which is actually something I forgot to bring up when I was talking about that movie, was Boromir was legitimately corrupted by the ring. But Faramir was just being a giant douchebag the entire time. But here, we really get some motivations about what Faramir is trying to achieve, because Faramir is really just trying to win the approval of his father, who, like, wishes that Faramir had died and Boromir had lived. Now, I don't think many people realize the implication of, like what he's saying. Like, he's basically wishing for his son to die so that his other son may like better. And so Faramir's whole thing is that he's good friends with Gandalf in the film, and like just the whole fact that he's trying to win the approval of his father, that he charges back into battle, and the whole thing where he's like, "Where do my loyalties lie if not here?" And also truly, another one of my absolute favorite parts of the film is when Pippin is singing about the Mist and Shadow song. That's what it's called. That is such an amazing song, because that just meshed with the pure just silent audio of them, just of Faramir and his riders from Astudia just riding back and just being slaughtered, and that is always just so powerful every time I watch the movie. And I guess segueing into a familiar character here, we're going to talk about Denethor next. So Denethor is really kind of like I won't say Trump. Well, I will say Trump, but there's also a lot of differences between them, obviously. But I think Trump is actually a nice comparison because they don't want to leave, like their position or whatever, and like they're both douchebags, which I think is a nice little comparison between two. But in reality, it could be more different. Anyway, my point is that Denethor is kind of interesting because he doesn't want to leave a position of power, and yet he's so cynical toward Faramir that like he just easily had a favorite in Boromir, and we see this classic example of just a parent picking a favorite over another child, which is a really nice dynamic that I'm really glad that they touched on in the film and the book. But moving away from Denethor, we get into one of the more major characters' relationships, and that's Legolas and Gimli. So these two across the course of the trilogy have some of the best, have probably the best chemistry of any of the characters because they get along so well, and there's all these constant quips about who is defeating the most enemies and counting kills in battle, and then just a lot of other really, really funny quips between the two of them. And then at the very end, outside like the Black Gate, when they talk about how about fighting side by side with a friend, like that dialogue is like the ultimate payoff. Like, and you'd be like, I could do that, and it's just like this ultimate payoff to like all their friendship and this amazing chemistry that they've had throughout the all three movies. So I personally just, it's a little short thing, but I think that like all that is extremely well done. So moving next into Gandalf as a character, I think he is excellent because while you see this wisdom behind him, you also see this desperation, which is a new side to Gandalf that I really, really like when compared to other traditional characters that we consider wise, which is what I expected from Gandalf when I was watching these films, and I must say I was pleasantly surprised by this aspect of Gandalf's character, and it is shown much more prevalently in this film as a whole, and I really like that. And also, this is, quote, death is just another path, one we all must take. I have no idea if I'm saying if that accent's horrible or just whatever. I suck at accents. Specifically that accent. Anyway, but like I love that quote a lot, and every time I watch it, it's just like it's one of my favorite quotes in like the whole series of movies, and yeah, I really think they did very excellent things with Gandalf's character, especially in regards with to his relationship with Pippin in this film, and the things that he does in the film that totally earn Gandalf's respect. So moving next into probably the most major character in this entire film, we have Aragorn. Now, Aragorn has been kind of a little bit of a stiff character, but I think it's really awesome in the Two Towers when he is like kind of so passionate and fighting for Rohan, and also in the beginning of the Two Towers, you see how passionate he is about finding Merry and Pippin and making sure they're safe. Like, he is very loyal to his ideals, and as you can see, he's very, very, very loyal to Gondor and kind of everything that it represents. And Um, I just think that is really, really cool. Um, just per se. And also, the King of the Dead scene is also easy another absolute favorite in this movie. And I seriously think is underrated because the King of the Dead is so ominous and like the history behind the army of the undead, and it is just incredible. It has so much like mythology behind that and history behind it. And I just love that scene in total because the dialogue is also very, very, very cool. Especially with like the ultimate payoff moment if you watch the extended edition, because like I'm really mad that this like one little scene wasn't in the theatrical edition, only in the extended edition. Because if that little scene where, and if you've seen the extended edition, you'll know what this is, but where the King of the Dead just comes out to Aragorn as he sees the Pelargir just sailing down the river, and he knows there's like nothing he can do about it, and then he just comes out and says, "We fight," and there's nothing else. It, like I cannot say enough how much I wish that was not cut out of the theatrical edition of the film, because like by themselves, the fact that the King of the Dead just does what he does and just disappears without giving Aragorn an answer, and then just shows up to fight, like it's not really explained. So I really wish that was in the theatrical edition. It would have made it so much better. But it is in the extended edition, which makes the extended edition really, really good. So because of that, I have to say that the extended edition, for that reason, is much better than the actual edition of this film because of that connectivity. But overall, Aragorn's character is fantastic because he just assumes this leadership role, and he does it so well. Because, like, also the moment where he just picks up Anduril is absolutely epic as well. But yeah, he's a very well crafted character. Another one of my favorite parts of the film is near the very end, when a little bit after he's crowned, which is also really cool. He's like my friends, you bow to no one. When he's like talking to the hobbits in the house about him, and then like everyone bows to him, and you hear the Shire theme. Like that whole sequence is just so well done, in my opinion, and I really just absolutely love it. And don't even get me started. Action is so good, and that third act is so gripping. It has so many plot twists and turns in it, and oh, so good. So, in conclusion, this movie has incredible characters, an amazing continuation of the world building, so many incredible scenes, in amazing music and sound effects, and incredible gripping third act of the film that just pays off so many different things. And it's pretty funny as well. It's got a lot of great quips, and it's just such a good movie. And like not even talking about the ending, which I'm not going to spoil, because for anyone that has not seen it, just go and watch it, and that ending will just blow you the f away. Like, it'll just blow you the hell away. Honestly, it did for me as well. Like, it was so good. Anyway, coming in at number one is Avengers Infinity War. Now, when I first saw this film in theater, I could not almost believe what I was seeing. I had never seen a movie that good in my life. And I have seen my fair share of movies like that since then, but nothing will ever match the experience I had watching this movie in the theater for the very first time. Because, for starters, the action is incredible. It is so well choreographed, and the special effects look absolutely incredible. And to this day, I still think that this is the movie with the best looking, with the best looking special effects out of any movie in the entire MCU. Like this movie has the best effects out of any movie in the MCU. And of course, Thanos is like the best villain of all time. He's just so well developed, and his views and morals. Now, if you really want me to go super in depth, like I mentioned previously, go check out my top 10 movie and TV villains. That's where I really go in depth into Thanos' character. And going into individual characters, like Black Widow in this movie is really quite interesting to me, because she's just kind of cool in this film. And then to kind of see like Hulk struggles with being the Hulk is excellent, and that's really kind of cool. Even though the action behind it is actually really disappointing. And we really have to talk about. Well, I'm going to talk about other characters, but I'm going to save 4 characters in particular that I think are really the absolute best. So, there's 5 characters, actually 5. That isn't Thanos, 5 characters. So, we firstly come to this kind of romantic subplot between Vision and Scarlet Witch and Wanda. And the whole sequence is just really, really good because of the way that I don't know, because it really makes a lot of emotion happen when Thanos just yeets the Mind Stone out of Vision, and you see like so much emotion in that sequence when he's just using it, and then he just kind of rewinds time. But I'll get to the snap later. But just kind of as a summary of the relationship, I think it's really, really good subplot, and it leads to a lot of nice dialogue payoffs in both this movie and Endgame, actually. So, moving on, we have kind of this selection of minor characters. We have Black Panther, Falcon, Spider-Man, the rest of the Guardians, not including Gamora, and I'll say Peter Quill later, actually, but the rest of the Guardians, their main goal is just to give comedic lines, and I absolutely love this because it just leads to so much hilarious dialogue, and honestly, every time I watch some of these scenes, I cannot stop laughing to save my life. Because the scenes are just so well written, and they're so funny, with so many references to these past movies, and Spider-Man, I think, is less much of an important character in this film as compared to Endgame, but I still think Tom Holland plays the ideal Spider-Man. Like, he is really the best actor for this role. He combines this Peter Parker innocence with this Spider-Man confidence in this amazing mix. And I really think he's just a good actor too. Like, he's also just a really good actor. And because of that, I really have to say that Spider-Man is a very good character in this film. It's hard to think. There's so many characters in this movie. But yeah, like all those characters pretty much are good. So a few more select characters I think also. Ebony Maw, I think has some of the best dialogue lines in the film, because when you're talking about like all the other servants of like children of Thanos or whatever, but they have some cool dialogue, but nowhere is it near the level of ingenious dialogue and just cool sounding dialogue that Ebony Maw has. And also, the Red Skull. Oh my god. I know it's not Hugo Weaving playing him, but it's still amazing. Like, genuinely amazing. I forget who the actor is that plays Red Skull, but he does it so well, and it's just this sense of mystery that completely surrounds the theater. And I remember I was flipping out when I saw that, because I thought that was the coolest thing ever, and I still think it is really, really cool when I'm watching the movie. Now onto the 5 kind of select characters I wanted to talk about much more in depth. So first off, Captain America. Now, Captain America in both this film and Endgame is really, he kind of has this worldview of like what happened, and especially after Civil War, like the event of Civil War ties and Ragnarok ties so well into this film together. And that is another huge bonus to this film. And like his worldviews after what happens in Winter Soldier to Civil War to now, and you see his disagreement with this government, the Sokovia Accord, but he just doesn't care at this point, and he's just kind of like, "Want to stop us? Like, we're here to save the Earth, whether you like it or not." It's like, it's really badass, and most of the Avengers go along with it. It's pretty darn sick. And honestly, just his whole like arc between the two movies is really, really good. I already discussed why I like Captain America Endgame, so I'm gonna stop it there. But the next character that I really want to discuss heavily is Doctor Strange. Now, Doctor Strange has one of the coolest and most important roles in this film, because he protects the Time Stone. And at first I thought it was only a dynamic character, but it is, because it is still his motivations. But he distinctly says that how when it comes to protecting Tony or Spider-Man or the Time Stone, like he's not hesitant to let both of them die. And Tony's like, good moral compass and all that stuff, which is, it is a good moral compass. It might seem cruel when you compare to two people, but when you talk about the fate of the entire universe, which is like trillions of beings, probably more, then you really see that. Then you really just see like how he's this, like his like he knows what he needs to do, which makes it he's supposed to be very very smart and very very wise in use of magics, like ultimate magic user and all that stuff. So and which is fitting because Doctor Strange is honestly one of my favorite comic book heroes to begin with. So all the action scenes he has are like doubly awesome, especially in Endgame. But easily the ultimate payoff to this was like his whole thing with 14,605 visions, and only one of them that they win. And I only realized this once I watched Endgame after a few times watching Endgame, or like the first like one or two times I was watching Endgame, was I realized that like just how that is paid off so well, because like he says just before he blips away that we're in the Endgame now, and then like he sacrificed the stone for them, and this is actually what with the ancient one and her dialogue Banner, and then like why the hell is Strange get away, and then like she kind of understands motivations, which is actually another payoff to that, but you eventually get this like dialogue where he is just talking about like this just kind of he really is a dynamic character in this way because of the way that he just changes, but he also does it for the motivations of saving the world, so he's staying consistent with his morals while being a dynamic character at the same time. Like, the fact that he managed to accomplish that is just so profound. And Strange honestly has really some of the best like payoff dialogue in the entire MCU, because in Endgame, like, and I just forgot this moment too, when he just holds up the one like that to Tony right before Tony's about to snap. That gets me every time I watch Endgame, honestly, and it genuinely is such an awesome like series of dialogue that pays it off so well, and it is really one of the biggest strengths of Endgame when I look at it as a sequel to Infinity War, and one of the biggest strengths of Infinity War as a prequel movie to Endgame, and the way that the two correlate together is such a big strength for both films. And the next character that I really want to talk about, so we've kind of talked about two so far, and those were Captain America and Doctor Strange. Next character is Tony. Now, Tony in this movie, for one thing, has a lot of really funny quips, but also cares a lot about Spider-Man. In that moment when just Spider-Man just fades away, obviously it's become it was a really big meme. Like, Mr. Stark, I don't feel so good. Mr. Stark, I don't feel so good. But just that whole moment is just so emotional, and especially his relationship with Thanos. And I talk about this more when I talk about Thanos in my video, which you can go check out. It's top 10 movie and TV villains. But you really like, and I'm going to deep into it in that video, but you really see like the differentiation between the two, and their dialogue is just so well crafted, in my opinion, and it honestly just makes it such a pleasure to watch a lot of the time. And really, that is really just where this movie honestly just shines. Is Tony's character is not the only part where it shines, obviously, but you really see him try to stop Thanos, and he just can't. And in Endgame, he's just like, we lost, and like his whole dialogue with Thanos is just so well done. And that was the main thing I wanted to talk about for that character. Aside from the fact he has a load of funny quips and so many hilarious references to past movies. Now, the next two characters are my two favorites in the film, and they are and like it was extremely hard deciding between these two characters which one I like better, but they are Thor and Gamora are my two favorite characters in the film. And after much deliberation, I decided I liked Gamora slightly better than Thanos, and it's not Thanos, Thor, and I'll explain why. So, for one thing, Thor starts out like already from Ragnarok into this really, really powerful first scene of the movie, just straight opens up with some amazing Ebony Maw dialogue and how he tries to fight, but he just doesn't. And I'm also going to kind of use this as an excuse to talk about Loki's character because he barely has any lines, but he's so good in this movie because, like, just of the way that they framed his dialogue, and he's like, "You're going to die for that," because in the end, he just stabs him with the axe that he makes. Which, by the way, oh god, what was the name? Nidavellir. That's the name of the place. Nidavellir is that entire sequence of scenes is one of the best is like the second best besides Vormir in the movie. And just it really, really is just such a well written scene because well, for one thing, the music is at its absolute peak. Alan Silvestri is on his absolute peak with the music in the Nidavellir sequence. Just on his absolute A triple plus game. Just triple plus game. Maybe even more than that. Like, the best music in the film comes from the Nidavellir sequences. And no one can really change my mind about that. In my personal opinion, I love Thor's motivations in this film. Like, just his kind of jaded view on how, like, Thanos is just gonna die. And he's never fought me twice. And especially with Rocket, I think there's some really nice dialogue. Especially the whole nice thing where Rocket gives Thor his eyeball back. I like that a lot. And I'm also going to use this to segue into Groot as well. So going back to the Loki part of it, Loki also has some great references to past movies between him and Thanos' dialogue. That's also really funny and also incredibly emotional. And also, it's kind of the ultimate payoff for his character because his son, Odin's son, which is just kind of this ultimate payoff across all the Thor movies, how he refused to be accepted as an Odin's son, and that is incredible to me, personally. Wow, we've reached 40 minutes recording. Anyway, moving on, Groot in this movie is just kind of funny because he's just kind of like this cussy teenager or whatever, and he really gets a redemptive arc because he's he kind of extends his arm and provides the wood that's needed to complete the handle on Stormbreaker, which is the name of the axe that Thor makes or whatever. And that scene where he's holding open the sun is so good. Like, it's just so good, honestly. And then that ultimate moment later when it's like they're in that really intense fight, and then Thor just comes in and it's perfectly timed with the music, for the record. Like, perfectly synced, which is such an amazing feat and accomplishment of the sound design and editing, in my personal opinion, to be able to do that. And I really must say that Thor's character is honestly just so well acted by Chris Hemsworth that honestly, another one of my favorite parts of Endgame is honestly the whole I went for the head thing. And I also use this to talk about the snap, because the snap is one of my favorite scenes in movie history now. Because like it keeps going up and down that scene with the whole WandaVision thing, because Wanda destroys the stone and effectively just kind of destroys Vision, but then Thanos rewinds time using the time stone they got from Doctor Strange, which is correlating to how excellent but all the characters are, to just grab it out of his head and then just kills him. And that whole scene is just amazing, honestly. That scene is incredibly well crafted and is really just amazing, honestly. Like, and then Thanos is like, you should have gone for that snap. And that's just so epic to me. And then the snap happens, and it's so emotional. And then it's ultimately paid off by another one of my favorite parts in Endgame, like a personal favorite of mine that I think is extremely underrated. When like they arrive on that planet where Thanos is resting at, and then Thanos just cuts off Thanos' head, and then like Rocket, like, what did you do? And he said, I went for the head. Like, oh my god, that sequence in Endgame is so emotional to me, and I love it to pieces, honestly. So, in conclusion, or no, wait, not in conclusion, I still have to talk about Gamora. Gamora, very closely, is what I consider to be the best character in this whole film. Because Gamora has so much depth as a character and is honestly just amazing because of this whole process that is just like, because for one thing, she has this relationship with Nebula, who is her sister or whatever, and that is expertly paid off, like in this whole like Peter Quill is a bitch, or is a like complete idiot. Sorry for my language, but is a complete idiot an SOB because he just punches Thanos, and it's honestly the most frustrating moment in the entire MCU. But that's a whole other thing. But just the Vormir sequence is so well done because it talks about like the one that you love, and I also went more into depth about this in the video that I keep alluding to, which you go watch. Look up this video and go watch it. But I explained in that video how like Thanos is just kind of, he has his world views, and yet he had to make the extremely hard choice. Like he said, he ignored his destiny once. I cannot do that again. Even for you, which means that like he, not even for his own daughter can he not like follow his destiny, which I really think is incredibly profound and further fits the profile of why Thanos is the greatest movie villain of all time, and no one can change my opinion that he is the greatest villain of all time. And honestly, he's also one of my favorite movie characters of all time as well. But like, it's just the way that they pay off the relationship and the dialogue and just how emotional like that scene was. I remember seeing it and I thought, this is such a good film. This is such a good scene. Like when I was watching it, and honestly, really just thought that it was a just an amazing film, amazing scene. So overall, this is my favorite film of all time because Thanos, amazing characters of every kind imaginable, and excellent character relationships, incredible action, hilarious quips, amazing music. Like, Alan Silvestri was truly at his absolute peak here with the music that he did for this film. And just overall, it is an amazing film that practically blows me away every single time I watch it because of so many things. And that is why Avengers Infinity War is my favorite film of all time. Thank you so much if you watched all the way through all of these ridiculously long videos, and I will see you later. Bye bye.